At 10:45 a.m. on October 27, 2018, Juan Mazariegos, one of our incredible off-duty police officers, waved to me anxiously at the Perlman Sanctuary door to come out of services to speak with him. He told me there had been a terrible shooting in Pittsburgh at a synagogue. Of the now 22 High Holy Day sermons I've offered here at NSCI over the past 18 years, not one of them has addressed the topic of anti-Semitism. I realized that morning that this year's sermon would be different. Of course, it wasn't just the Tree of Life Synagogue in Pittsburgh. We've been hearing about a worrisome increase in anti-Semitism in Europe for quite some time. Here in the Midwest, we've experienced a 110% increase in anti-Semitic incidents in the last 3 years. And across the country, 2017 and 2018 saw the second and third most anti-Semitic incidences in nearly half a century. Charlottesville and its chants of "the Jews will not replace us," the shooting at the Chabad in Poway, California, 6 months to the day after the massacre at Tree of Life, the spate of attacks on Orthodox Jews in New York that has been going on for well over a year, but has only been reported on recently, swastikas drawn on and Molotov cocktails left at synagogue doorways, Jewish cemeteries desecrated. In many progressive circles, some groups will only allow Jewish students, not Israeli, but Jewish students, to participate if they take a, quote, disloyalty oath, decrying Israel as racist. When government representatives feel comfortable tweeting, quote, "it's all about the Benjamins," or accusations of, quote, dual loyalty and globalist conspiracy, we should be concerned. When former KKK Grand Wizard David Duke tweets, quote, "by defiance to the ZOA, the Zionist occupation government, Ilhan Omar is now the most important member of the US Congress," end quote. It signifies that the far right and the far left have, despite their mutual hatred of each other, found common allegiance to their shared hatred of the Jew. And make no mistake, for every publicized remark or action, there are countless others crossing our desks and our dining room tables, our class schoolrooms, and our screens. Each and every one of these expressions, whether overt or subtle, is anti-Semitism. And this anti-Semitism is coming from all sides. Please don't hear this as political commentary. Whichever side it comes from, all of us lose. Hate is not a zero-sum game. We need to recognize and take seriously this newest mutation of anti-Semitism. Perhaps you were as shocked as I to read the 2018 study that reported the following stunning facts. First, 31% of American adults grossly underestimate the impact and death toll of the Holocaust. Second, a full 2/3 of millennials have never heard of Auschwitz. And third, nearly a quarter of them have never heard of the Holocaust, period. How could this possibly be? Consider that from the mid-20th century through today, there has never been a better time to be Jewish. We are free. We can study in any university and enter any workplace. We have representation in all branches of government and avenues of society. We have allies, we have a homeland, and we can defend ourselves. We are the proud inheritors of a vast and deep wisdom tradition and faith that has so much to offer, and nothing about which we need feel ashamed. For those of us born well after World War II, we were in all likelihood raised to internalize the importance of never again, in particular as a directive to protect other minority groups from discrimination in any way reminiscent of our own Jewish history. But despite our incredible prosperity in the last century, the farther we get from the Holocaust and the carriers of its story, so too the more distant we become from its lessons, cautioning us about the dangers of anti-Semitism. And perhaps this led you, like me, to mistakenly assume that as long as we kept it unacceptable in mainstream social circles, anti-Semitism would be denied the oxygen it needed to breed and fester. But we should have known better. In the eyes of the anti-Semite, the Jew is whatever the anti-Semite needs the Jew to be, the symbol of a society's most sinister qualities at any moment in time, throughout time. Often referred to as the longest hatred, anti-Semitism is insidious, and it does not die. So what can we possibly do to confront this new reality? First, we need to continue to educate ourselves about anti-Semitism and all forms of hate. Read renowned scholar and my teacher, Professor Deborah Lipstat's book, Anti-Semitism Here and Now. Join us for our book discussion about it in 2 weeks on October 27th at 7 p.m. And come hear her speak at NSCI the evening of November 21st. Listen to stories of the survivors who are still with us. Bring your children and your grandchildren too. You can come here on the afternoon of November 5th or 6th to hear our own NSCI congregant, Ralph Samuels, share his family's incredible story with our students at our commemoration of Kristallnacht. Or visit the Illinois Holocaust Museum and Education Center's moving Take a Stand exhibit. Or join us tomorrow afternoon at 2 p.m. to hear from Tony McAleer as he tells his incredible story of Teshuvah, from being a white supremacist to founding the transformative organization Life After Hate. Second, we must call out anti-Semitism and all other forms of hate whenever and wherever we see them. Whether uttered by a politician or a friend at a party, tweeted hatefully or spoken in jest, words matter. Remember, whenever words of hate are spoken, violence eventually follows. We should begin in the circles closest to us. Don't forget, anti-Semitism flourishes in any hothouse of intolerance and grows robustly alongside other hatreds, whether those hatreds seem directed towards us Jews or not. We all have the power to call out anti-Semitic language and any other form of hate-filled language. We can do this quite simply. When you hear it, you can respond, "That's not funny," or "I don't get it." Kill the conversation. At the very same time, we need to be careful not to politicize anti-Semitism or weaponize it myopically against our political foes, in particular those who are Jewish. Many of you regularly send me emails lambasting whomever the other side is with proof of their anti-Semitism or complicity in it. but never once has anyone sent me anything critiquing their own side's anti-Semitic behavior or words. If you cannot recognize that no political movement, party, or side of the fractured national conversation has a monopoly on anti-Semitism, then you simply aren't looking hard enough. It's easy to convince ourselves that the one on our side exists only at the powerless fringe, or that it's outweighed by more important ideological alliances. But we have to be as intolerant of anti-Semitism from our political allies as we are from our foes. More importantly, we must stop blaming fellow Jews who sit on the other side of our political aisle for anti-Semitism. Please hear me. When we engage in this sort of behavior, it is a win for all anti-Semites and a categorical loss for us. I'd like to take a moment now to speak to our high school and college students. We know that many of your campuses have tensions, often specifically involving anti-Israel sentiments, which can slip subtly and not so subtly into anti-Semitism. This can come from activist circles, students who don't know better, and those who do, and even faculty who don't know better, and even worse, those who do. We do not want you to be afraid. Know that you are not alone. Besides seeking out your school's resources, you can reach out to us, your rabbis, cantor, and educators at any time, even if you aren't sure if what you've experienced is anti-Semitism. We are here to support you. We'll help you figure it out and establish a course of action together. Third, we need to remember that this is 2019, not 1939, and we are not alone. Remember the response from the larger community after the Tree of Life shooting? Remember the tens, if not hundreds of thousands who showed up across the country at vigils and unity services in the days and weeks afterwards? The solidarity offered and sympathy extended from our brothers and sisters of other faiths and those of no faith too? And at the same time, we need to remember that, as Dr. Lipstadt points out, nothing we are witnessing today compares in any measure to the kind of endemic hatred and persecution that German and Austrian Jews were subjected to in the years leading up to World War II. I'm not saying we should not be vigilant, but we must not let fear or trauma take us backwards. We do well to remember the words of Rabbi Harold Schulweis. The Holocaust is our tragedy, but it is not our rationale. Of course, Judaism cherishes memory, and memory of the Holocaust should compel us to be and act a certain way in the world. But remembrance of the past should not be the prime motivator for our being Jewish. Ultimately, we here in the United States find ourselves at a crossroads, and we need to decide how much power we want anti-Semitism to have, how much airtime, how much oxygen we want to give to it. Will we cower in fear, build up our fortresses, hunker down in isolation? Or will we stand up with pride and power to say that anti-Semitism does not get to define us this time? It cannot push us to the side. More than anything else, do you want to know the very best way to fight anti-Semitism? Be a proud Jew. Affirm our global mission, not to make the world more Jewish, but to make the world more human. Yes, we have achieved and experienced influence and privilege. That's not something to be ashamed of. We need to take that influence and that privilege and use them not only to defend ourselves, but to pursue justice for all people. We are called to be Or Lagoyim, a light to the nations, a light of just and ethical teaching and living in a world that so desperately needs it, now more than ever. To that end, I'd like to share a powerful teaching from my rabbi's rabbi and father, Rabbi Jack Stern of beloved memory. He writes, "Our rationale is the vision of what God's world should be and God's people should be. Our vision is of God's world, where everyone can sit under his vine and fig tree and walk the streets of his own city with no one to make him afraid." At 6:45 in the evening on October 27, 2018, I stood under a marriage canopy, a chuppah, with two incredible adults who loved each other deeply, decided to throw their lot in with each other, and commit to marriage built on love, rooted in the deepest of our tradition. At the end of the ceremony, the groom stepped on a glass, shattering it, reminding us that even though the world is broken, when two people come together in love, united in a history and a vision for the future, repair and healing becomes possible. Each and every time a couple stands under a chuppah, each and every time we give tzedakah, each and every time we light Shabbat candles, each and every time we join together as a community in song and in prayer, each and every time we show kindness to our neighbor, love to the stranger, feed the hungry, clothe the poor, each and every time we defy darkness with light, we make a profound statement as individuals and as a people. We will not let fear and hate have the last word. Hope and goodness have that spot reserved. Gemar Chatima Tova. May we be inscribed and sealed in this new year for goodness, for kindness, for blessing, and for peace. Shana Tova.